Many thanks to Job, Jaren, DayZ Podcast, Taggy's Tag West, Black Knight and Lion Lost for making this video possible. DayZ 1.17 has added 6 new melee weapons to play with. Blunt weapons were buffed. You can now use a piece of clothing for the first time ever as a viable weapon, and because why the frick not, you can set weapons on fire to deal extra damage. This patch has changed a lot when it comes to melee, so let's go over all of those changes. The first new melee weapon I want to talk about is the very unique motorbike helmet that can be used as a melee weapon, which only comes in the colour yellow to represent the Yellow King that we've seen in DayZ lore before. For the first time, a melee weapon can be used and worn as a piece of clothing which has all the beneficial protective properties of a regular motorbike helmet. The additional 2 stats that the Yellow King helmet has over regular motorbike helmets are health damage and shock damage, inflicting 15 health damage per hit on the chest of a player, along with 20 shock damage. The helmet has a very high chance to cause a bleed on every single hit, which makes sense given the ferocious look of this helmet. Unfortunately though, against infected, it's about as powerful as a knife, but it can't be used to stealth kill infected. Upon use, like any weapon in DayZ, it becomes damaged, but because it's a helmet, you can repair it with epoxy putty, unlike any other melee weapon in the game, which usually takes a whetstone to repair. Now, I couldn't find any way to craft the helmet or deconstruct the helmet, so my guess is that it will spawn where motorbike helmets spawn, as is. The second new melee weapon in this patch is the bone knife, which can be very easily crafted by placing bones in your hands and then crafting it from the menu in the bottom left. No tools are required and it only requires 2 bones per knife. The bone knife has the exact same stats as the stone knife we already have in the game, but weighs 5 times less. Like the stone knife, the bone knife degrades very quickly at about twice the speed that a kitchen knife does and cannot be repaired using any methods. Its damage is the same as other knives in the game and can do any action that a knife can do, including stealth attacks. Speaking of which, this is the new stealth animation added in 1.17, which is just a variation of the stealth attack we already have in game, but it's aimed towards the neck of the infected. 2 variations of the newly re-added spear are now craftable, crafted by combining the new bone knife with a long wooden stick to craft a bone version of the spear, or a stone knife and a long wooden stick to craft a stone version of the spear. For a melee weapon, the spear is light, has average damage, has low durability, and like the bone and stone knife, cannot be repaired. Unfortunately, this spear cannot be used to do stealth kills, but aiming for the head makes the spear 2-shot most infected, making it one of the better melee weapons in DayZ, save for its low durability. And FYI, if you try to deconstruct it, you will lose the knife part of the spear. Finally, for the spear, if you want to throw the spear like a javelin at an infected straight in its eye, you can't do that. 4th on our list is the re-added Pitchfork, inflicting 20 health and 25 shock damage per hit with a very high chance to cause bleeding. This weapon cannot be used to stealth attack, even though that would be incredibly awesome, and you can't throw it like a javelin or a trident either. To my surprise, you can't use the Pitchfork to create garden plots, and you can't use it in base building either. So apart from the suicide animation, this is just another generic weapon in DayZ. But like the spear, if you aim for the head, it is a really good weapon at killing infected. And finally, like the spear, it cannot be repaired. 5th is the re-added cleaver, which is essentially a hatchet with a different model when it comes to melee damage, just a smaller version inside your inventory. The cleaver cannot be used to cut down trees though, but will do everything that a knife can do, minus the ability to stealth kill infected. This means that the cleaver is somewhere between an axe and a knife, but worse than both of these, and has no special abilities to make you better at cooking. The best feature of the cleaver then is that it's really shiny and can be repaired with a whetstone. A weapon that does have multiple uses though is the meat tenderizer, but it isn't used for tenderizing meat. It can be used in base building and works exactly like the hammer does. The drawback with the tenderizer is that it has half the durability of the hammer and cannot be repaired either, and as a melee weapon it's not very good, just like the hammer, so this will most likely be considered a tool than it is a weapon. The broom is quite possibly the worst melee weapon in DayZ, only inflicting 5 health damage per hit, so it doesn't exactly sweep your enemies off their feet. However, in 1.17 you can now satisfy the whispers in your head and set it on fire, doubling the health damage of the 2 variations of the broom against infected and players. When it comes to shock damage, the broom that isn't on fire will inflict 10 shock damage per hit on a player, but while it is on fire, it will inflict 25 shock damage instead per hit, capable of KOing a player in just 3 hits, making it one of the better melee weapons in the game to KO players with. While lit, both of the brooms cannot be placed on your back, and eventually the fire will go out because it will run out of fuel. However, you can extinguish it with water and then light it again to use it as a melee weapon when you want to, but I will go into more detail on that in another video. For now, the broom is one of the least durable weapons in DayZ, and there's no way to repair it, and no, you cannot use a broom to stealth attack. Finally, for this video, I want to go over some of the random changes I found while looking over the melee weapon changes. For example, blunt weapons will now do twice the health damage during normal attacks and 50% more health damage during heavy attacks, making them better against infected in this patch. Axes can be used to gather bark from trees now. This includes the cleaver. You can now place the 2 types of torches on your shoulder slots. And finally, the durability of the small wooden stick was reduced by 80% and the durability of the long wooden stick and sharpened stick by 50%, but I don't know why. And that concludes all of the changes that I found in DayZ 1.17. Let me know your take on the changes and the new melee weapons below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day.